like a lot, honestly. Before I and I even got around to the actual question, so much of what I heard also played in to community and environment, which is precisely what is next. And as I'm
Right.
listening to the stories and how profound it is, the way that these stories of your parents, how they were still able to have community with each other. And then from what I'm even seeing with the both of you, I have to ask, while probably living in different places, I'm not sure, do you two still have community amongst each other, even as brothers, when it comes to helping each other with advice or how y'all are as fathers and just building off of each other in that capacity with helping raise your children as basically uncles? Do y'all share that in a way? And what is that like, having that community?
I would say so, but I would say it's more inadvertent or
Mm,
something that's a little bit more organic. I don't think that it's a thing that's like forced or contrived.
right, of course.
I would say in the biggest way, and I kid you not, I was literally just saying this to Sandy. Sandy's my wife. I always be talking about my
Yeah,
wife, pardon me. But yeah,
you as you
so
should.
Good husband. Good
Okay.
man.
talk about she in the background talking about my wife is back there. But yeah, we were talking about she was asking me, she was like, yeah, you gonna pull up to the Juneteenth thing with the acting. The I don't know if it's a recital or a play.
It's a reenactment.
A
Yeah.
reenactment. There you
Yeah.
go. But we were literally talking. I was like, yo, he's one of the people that I look to in terms of just keeping your child involved in different things. You know what I mean? Like Kai is an awesome kid. He's into like graffiti, like he was saying,
Yeah.
taekwondo, skateboarding, going to various festivals and things of that sort. Just keeping him entrenched in the community. So I look at him. I don't always express this to him, but I'm saying it now. I look at him I'm like, man, it's part of the reason why when my kid came home and she was saying like, I want to get into fencing. I'm like, yeah, I gotta get her involved in something. So now my daughter, she was into fencing. She just
That's dope.
played
Nice.
in a rugby tournament last
Oh
weekend.
wow.
Yes,
She
that's
was doing
big.
boxing. She was doing boxing and just doing all types of stuff. But a lot of that is things that I've just observed just from watching him.
I
Mm,
would say the same. A lot of it is in that way where I'm observing things where we might just meet by happenstance in the parking lot of the elementary school that my son went to, and he's out there shooting around, and I'm seeing how he is with his son, and I'm like, yeah, okay, let me practice that with Kyrie, because sometimes I'm a little hard on him, or
mm,
sometimes I could be a little bit more patient.
mm.
So it is in that way where we're not just like trading war stories, but we're just observing each other. I think we
That's
could
powerful.
benefit from being intentional
I was gonna
with
say the I
conversations
word, being
on,
more
Go
intentional
ahead,
about
you
yeah,
it.
got it.
yeah.
Do your thing,
I
But
you
think
got it.
so. And that leads into the next question, right?
Mm.
So, what role do we believe community and environment play in supporting family and children?
Can you
Say
repeat that?
huge.
What role do we believe community and environment play in supporting family and children?
Can I
I
start?
say, oh, no, she can't.
And then I can sit and just listen. But it's in my book that I'm writing, so it screams at me as a story that I like to tell, because we left London when my daughters were 2 and 3. And like yourself, Ant, I used to take the girls out every day as much as I could because they're a year apart. So I'd put Millie in the thing and put Ome in the buggy, and off we'd go. And when we came to where my mom lives, which is the suburbs. So we left London, in a city area, urban built up area, and came back to Solihull, which is the suburbs, predominantly white, but super quiet. And we'd walk out the front door. Ome's 3, so she's walking. Millie's in the buggy now. And she'd come out the house like this. And I never noticed until we left London, right? In London, she's coming out and she's ready for what's about to happen. Do you know what I mean? That she can hear the cars and it's all going off. And London's a city that never sleeps, a lot like New York. So she'd step out of my mum's house, like ready to roll. And I'm looking at her like, what's wrong with you? It was environment.
Yeah.
And she calmed right down. And coming out of my mum's house, we'd come across elderly people and they'd be like, all right, Bab, how are you? Oh, aren't you gorgeous? And they'd have these slow conversations and this slow pace. And I don't think my children would be the same if we'd have stayed in London. And I do know as a youth worker in London, I saw something different to what I grew up with. You know, so I think environment, number one, is massively important and relevant, you know. And then in terms of community, all I have to say about that is the village and things like going to Kung Fu every week and their Seafood Chan and Seafood Mark. For that time they went to Kung Fu, they were huge in their world, you know. The school community, the family community, like my children are absolutely a result of the community that I allowed them to be a part of. And I think, you know, it's very tempting, especially those kind of lockdown babies. It can be easy to keep your children to yourself, but it's just not fair because children need to be part of community. They need to feel that. They need to walk into spaces and know this is me. You know, without mommy as well, without daddy as well. Yeah.
I definitely can go off that community and environment plays a huge role. Just as in like seeing the difference between me, I got 3 older brothers. We're all in kind of different eras and different years. Like my oldest brother was born in 1995, then the second oldest 1998. And then it's me and my other brother that's the closest. He was born in 2001, I was born in 2002. And kind of seeing like how we grew up, my oldest 2 brothers were more inside and they just, you know, played with themselves and that nature. So they grew up to be more like not as social, not as extroverted, and not as, you know, wanting to, you know, just not react, but interact with people in that nature. And then there's me and the brother that's like right above me. We go out, we go party, we go talk to people, we go, you know, interact and try to, you know, pick people's brains and get information for our own from other people rather than, you know, just being more introverted. And like seeing that, it's like you really are the environment you kind of put in and like the people you have around you. Because like I was saying before, how I was very like a jack of all trades, wanted to kind of blend in with everything. You know, you're going to want to observe and, you know, not fit in, but like you get that energy on you. And it's like, I'm going to be the environment that I'm around. They always say, you know, if you're with 5 broke people, you're going to be the 6th broke person or in that nature. So I always feel like the environment and community is very, very important. Because if your community is kind of negative minded, always thinking about, I don't know, say like, because I grew up in the hood and stuff like that, I always wanted to be, you know, doing things quick money, getting into gang violence, things of that nature. You're gonna think, you know, that's your community, that's what I'm supposed to be in. But then you in a community that's, you know, intellectual, speaking about money, speaking about business and things of that nature. Now that's your community. So I feel like it always is important for the community, like where you put your child at and like where you want them to be.
100%. So I feel like I agree 100%. Like, you know, I'm backing that. I feel like community is so important because, like, one, just getting that child to be able to like communicate on different levels with different types of people or whatever, right? But I feel like I was speaking about this before, not today, but I was speaking about it before, and sometime also again, I'm sure. Like a mother has a way that they, or a parent, the biological parent or person that gave birth, or they have certain fears, certain things that they are like with their child that maybe the aunt is not going to have, the uncle's not going to have, the cousin's not going to have, the neighbor's not going to have. I think it's important that a child, like why community is so important, because if the mother is the only one raising this child, that child is only being raised one way. That means that if the mother believes that this is the right way and that this is all they're doing, the child don't never get to see or know nothing outside of that. I believe that when Blue is with me, Fail is scared. She don't want him to do nothing. He got locked in my apartment one time or whatever when she was bringing him to see me. We was going bringing stuff from the hallway to. He locked himself in and could not even pull the door. I felt so now I'm looking. I'm like, so see, you keep complaining every time he's over here with me. You don't want him to. I can't even show you. I got workout stuff here. Blue is he's very physical. He want to try to pick her. She's so scared. I don't want him playing with the weights. I don't want him doing. I don't want. So boom. I say all that to say, he's gonna have different relationship with me than he's gonna have with Phil. I'm gonna be able to do things with him. He's gonna get to know and do different things than he's gonna do with her, and so forth and so on. I believe that is extremely important, especially if there's a child that is not of the street, that does not have, that is not, because you're sheltered and you only see, if you don't have a different perspective of different things, I believe that you're going to be in major trouble. You're going to have a long journey to now develop that skill. So that's just the basic. I believe community is so important for so many other things, but that right there is, like, to me, very important.
Definitely
If that
like
makes
that
sense.
aspect.
I
I
see
definitely
why
like
you
that
say
aspect.
that. Yeah, I definitely see why you say that. You know, we hear about people being a product of the environment, coming up in a certain community, and that's why things turned out the way they did for them. But I think it's a bit more like the example I heard of two sons raised by an abusive father. One turns out to be into drinking, drugging, gets locked up. The other one turns out to be successful. They both had the same father, but they chose different paths. So I've seen it in real time in my community. I live in a gated community right behind Park Hill Apartments. I used to hop the fence to go do miscreant things with my friends. Some of us went one way, some of us went another way. So I think community and environment play a huge role. Ultimately, it's not the deciding factor. I think it's all about, like you said, what we're exposed to, right? So that really gets us to where we want to go. I brought up before that my mother would always have us into the community, the different cultural arts programs and things like that. Some of my friends might not have had that exposure. So when they get into things like we joined gangs, we cut school, we did all of these things that, the cliche, he's going down that path, he's going to end up there. But only out of all of my friends, only one of us are locked up. One of them moved down south, and he wouldn't be the person you expect. He got taken out by gun violence, but the numbers, it just doesn't support the claim that people are going to end up a certain way if they're brought up in an environment that's not conducive. Although I do believe that having access to the tools that can provide us with a successful lifestyle could be extremely beneficial. That's not the only thing, because pressure makes diamonds, right? So that's how I end on with that.
For sure. I look at community in an additional way. Environment, of course, is one thing. Anybody who has met me now would never think as a first thought that I spend some time in different hooligan environments, that I've lived in the hood, I've lived in the projects, that I used to be more of a firecracker than I am now because I had to be. And
say it ain't so.
And that there was never conducive to who I always was. But even when it comes to being raised, the environment showed me one thing, and then home showed me another thing. So it was always living in duality until I got to take full control of my environment, because at home I was raised on love, raised on family sticks together. Family supports each other. Am I my brother's keeper? Am I my sister's keeper? You do not go against the family in public. You protect in public, correct in private. We are a unit and we support each other and have each other's best interests. And then when I would hear of people's families that are not like that, I will go, yikes. Only because I understand how important that is, but that a lot of people don't have that. And then my environment was more, somebody look at you crazy, you gotta be ready to get on that. At any point in time, you have to always keep your guards up. You have to be on guard.
Can't allow no disrespect.
No disrespect is tolerated. You always have to snap back. You always have to be ready to say or do what is necessary to defend and protect yourself, because everything is always hostile. Everybody around is always hostile. But I was not raised to be hostile, but I had to develop that. So even in the choice of who are you going to be, as Amara was saying, it can never be you blaming your environment. It's what you choose to do with it at a point in time of when you develop your consciousness, because I always knew that this way that I was projecting because of the people I was around, being more aggressive, I don't like being aggressive. So it took me a while to be able to put myself in an environment where that was no longer required, then to grow and then to stand on that part. But growing up, I had to develop aggression because I used to be so nice from how I was raised in my community of home to not so much dealing with other people. So environment and community, they can serve to show a child at all stages duality as well. Some can perpetuate, it's like this at home and it's like that when you go outside. But then sometimes you can get, it's not like this at home. So even though I'm this way, when I step outside, I know that I can be safe at home. And then understanding people as you think back and as you were a kid around other kids, having such a level of consciousness and awareness as a kid that we're not all having the same experience, that can take you to a different level of understanding as well. But it only takes a high level thought process of kids to really understand that, because nobody cares. And then nobody really cares about that. But I was one of those ones that did. But overall, nobody cares. And
I want to ask you a question real quick before I lose it real quick, because you said that you had the duality or whatever, so you was kind of I think every individual who levels up or matures or faces a duality, right, between old and new self. So how did you what did that shit I don't if it's a long if it's a long I don't want to because I don't want to go off topic, but I'm very curious to know what was that shift because to pinpoint it, to know when you going how going to both places, still doing both or whatever, because I still be going to the lounges sometimes. I still be, you know what I'm saying, sweating some weekends and not being able to get up some Sundays. You know what I'm saying?
To answer your question, it wasn't a how or what, it was only a matter of time of when. Because I was always cognizant enough to know that I was in spaces that did not align with me based on where I had to be. And then based on elementary school, grade school, high school, and college, I knew when I was places I had no business being. That I was around people who did not deserve to be around me and interacting in a way based on only their level of understanding. So I was just biding my time to when I could get into a safe space to fully develop. And then my extracurricular activities, the previously aligned with more hooligan behavior. And now I actually do what I genuinely enjoy doing that nobody else around me wanted to do. But once I was able to get away from them, now I do things by myself. And I like doing things by myself if nobody else wants to do them. And
I can see you as a hooligan.
Absolutely. Turning up.
But me and you are similar like that though, because I think all I want to add is just that I think you get what you need to. We all have the divine experience we're supposed to have, and we're put where we need to be put. So there can't be a right and wrong in it. You know what I'm saying? And I think in a reverse way, I was a suburban you that had to go into the world and develop toughness because I was green. You know what I'm saying? But equally, being othered as a black child in a white environment, that created strength in me.
And I've been that one.
Yeah, I think everybody's it's required, isn't it?
I've lived in many different places, and even when it comes to me being a bit more spicy when I had to, a bit more wild when I had to, so people could understand and comprehend on their level, I was still always knew that the goddess Anahata was in there. She just didn't have time to come out. That wasn't the time and place yet. So I respected that, to give her the time and place. And when it comes to community, a lot of people think of community and environment in just one way, but also forget about what if you don't necessarily have that. All I've ever had is just me, my mom, and my brothers. Aunts, uncles, other people, friends, help me with this, help me with that. You got my back if I got your back. Let's do this together. Who can I rally? Who can we call? We don't have that. And because we didn't have that, we just made it work. And a lot of people can't do that.
And that's valuable though, that's the point. That's the biggest thing I've learned on my professional journey and my personal journey is it's all right. There is no wrong. And I know we've had the conversation before. I've had it with Synthonia before about, you know, some of the most adverse childhood experiences, the most traumatic, can create some of the best people, you know. So you are made, the Most High will craft you into what you're designed for. And it's later on in life you realise that I see what I've been crafted for now. It's obvious, you know what I'm saying? I'm able to go into spaces, that pressure. And IMI and the community upbringing that you talk about, for me, looking at you, creates this wonderful artist with all these different bows to your strings, you know what I mean? And that spiritual element of it, you know what I mean? It's not just making music for music's sake, you know, but it's all right. And the challenge is, like you said, IMI, so wisely at the start, is comparison. That we are in a society that teaches us to compare. and we have something to compare to. We can look on this and look on that and look on this. But back in the day, you know, you it is what it is. You know, and Mom used to say to me, which we grew up with this viewpoint that everybody is supposed to be different. That's what we grew up with. In the Caribbean, everybody is this individual self, and people are everybody's weird, everybody's autistic, everybody, you know what I mean? That's just what it is in the Caribbean. That's what I was taught. So this whole kind of, you're supposed to be like this and you're supposed to be like that and you're supposed to fit into this.
Fitting in and following the trends and assimilating, that's never been my identity. So yeah, I've been that one who, even when I tried to do it, it's like everybody knew that I wasn't supposed to be doing that. Why are you trying to fit in?
I always got in trouble.
Okay.
I always got in trouble every time I was outside myself or doing something, trying to be somebody. It never, ever, zero amount of times has it ever worked out for me. Zero. Same thing.
I had a little point about the whole community thing, but I didn't want to interrupt the flow.
Okay.
I'm curious.
We're all a composite. You know what I'm saying? That's pretty much what we are of the community, whether it be the nucleus or extended. Community is pretty much, it's a microcosm of society as a whole. Like she was talking about being green. It's important for you to go out there and get that experience and to be able to mingle with different people and see how the world really works. Like within your neighborhood, you can get a glimpse of how the world works. The way that people politic with one another, the way that people exchange with one another, whether it be folks bartering or selling this or selling that. You got to go out in the world and you got to get lied to. You know what I'm saying? You got to have those interactions where they're fake. You got to have those wholesome interactions. Like you got to experience all of it. Exposure is a major key, because like you were saying, Tone, it gets to a point where you grow up and you go out there and you're like, man, I've been living in fairy tale land. Some people just get so overwhelmed because they haven't experienced anything. They haven't experienced heartbreak. They haven't experienced true friendship. They haven't experienced anything outside of their small community. So you got to get out there into the community, out there into the world, just observe things, experience things. And another thing that you were saying before about just having a little dude do pull-ups, I can't even tell you how influential some of my dad's friends and my uncles, they've been on my life. Just different habits that I've picked up from different people, and good things too, positive things.
Exactly.
Learning not how to be prejudiced against people and just operating and viewing people through this lens of these, these preconceived notions. You hear about somebody who's involved in a certain line of work, let's say street pharmaceuticals, if you will, and you might assume that this person is just all bad. They're just a horrible person. But one of the people that took really good care of me as an adolescent was somebody that was involved in the street business. But this is somebody where when my mother was working late after my dad passed, I could go over his house. He cooked dinner for me. Take me and my friends here and there. Some of the homies' dads. Summertime, it's hot outside. What y'all want to do? Take us to the pool. Taught us how to drive. Taught us how to change tires. Just different things like that. Just being responsible. Yeah, like a real experience. That's why it's important to have that community. And I'm not joking when I say keep that little guy doing them pull-ups, because that's something that's going to serve him later on in life. You think about the crisis that a lot of us are faced with in America. Just in terms of just various ailments and illnesses and so on and so forth. A lot of things that are associated with a sedentary lifestyle. He gonna get to a point in time where he's gonna be doing pull-ups, doing push-ups, calisthenics, be healthy, and be like, man, I got that from Aunt Tone. You know what I mean?
Yep. See what I'm saying? You just made my heart jump.
Seriously. I got books that I've gotten from people. I remember I was in a GED program, no less. And I got a book, was it Soul on Ice, Eldridge Cleaver. That made me want to look further into Black history and civil rights and so on and so forth. Then that led me to reading a book like Visions for Black Men, Naeem Akbar. I got that from a friend.
What's the name of that one?
Visions for Black Men by Naeem Akbar. It's a really good book, very good book. But just having these various people around, my father, one of his best friends, expanded my palette in terms of just within the scope of hip hop. Every time I see him, he listening to De La Soul and Tribe Called Quest and so on and so forth. So then now I'm listening to this type of music. So then for me listening to that, now I'm looking at the liner notes. I'm looking at the samples. Now I'm getting into jazz. I'm listening to Weldon Irvin and so on and so forth. But I don't get that type of experience if I'm not exposed to these different ideas, a myriad of ideas. And then, so ultimately I say this, we're all an amalgam and a mixture of ideas, ideals, values. We get our scruples, our moral compass. These things are guided and calibrated through these various people, through community. And just look at all of those words, the big C's, right? Like communication, communion, community, like all of these things. They all go hand in hand, and they play a great deal in our development into the day we transition. Even as an adult, we just continually getting things from community.
For sure.
So I
Bro,
think
you
that's
high
why
level
community is
too.
important.
I'm just say that you high level is.
I think I did say that before, though, right? I said I'm gonna bring somebody in, and he's no slouch. He definitely operates on that high level.
You did.
So,
You did.
Yeah, you ain't no joke. Okay.
We see firsthand. I didn't want to cut the wisdom at all because he was flowing on a stream. Raising children, we got to operate with one love. I think that's definitely what we have to give, and just be open to receiving. I think this conversation calls for a part 2. We want to come back and involve our parents, involve our children. Also want to eventually get to the conversation about feminine, masculine, and just us relating to each other. So this has been a great conversation. The Well-Beings Podcast. Lovely guests that we had.